Greetings, it's me, Dr. Paul Gerhardt, and this is video number 3 of our Mergers and Acquisitions series. This particular video will focus on anti-takeover measures. So here's the module focus. A hostile takeover occurs when an acquirer attempts to gain control of a company without the support of the target company's board of directors. The term hostile describes the bidder's relationship with the board. It does not necessarily mean that shareholders oppose the offer. Shareholders may support a hostile bid when it provides a substantial premium over the company's current share price. Anti-takeover measures are policies, contractual provisions, governance structures, or strategic actions designed to prevent, delay, discourage, or reshape an unwanted change in corporate control. The central question is, do anti-takeover measures protect shareholders from an inadequate, coercive offer, or do they protect managers from accountability? The answer depends on the offer, the defense, the board's motives, the available alternatives, and the likely effect on corporate value. Anti-takeover law varies by jurisdiction and continues to develop. This lecture is intended for managerial education and is not legal advice. So let's understand what hostile takeovers are. Number one, they're a bidder that may attempt to gain control through a tender offer made directly to shareholders, a proxy contest to replace directors, open market share purchases, a public campaign pressuring the board, or a combination of share ownership and board replacement. A hostile takeover often creates two related contests. The ownership contest, where the shareholders sell their shares to the bidder, and 2, the governance contest. Will shareholders replace directors who oppose the transaction? Many takeover defenses do not permanently prevent an acquisition. Instead, they give the board more time and require the bidder to negotiate. Why bidders pursue hostile takeovers? A bidder may believe that the target company is undervalued. Management is underperforming. Assets are being used inefficiently. A combination would create significant cost savings or revenue growth. And the board is refusing to consider a reasonable offer, as well as shareholders will support leadership or strategic change. A hostile bidder may identify genuine organizational problems. However, a bidder may also attempt to exploit a temporary decline in the company's stock price. Managers must evaluate the proposal based on evidence rather than automatically treating the bidder as either a threat or a rescuer. Let's talk about what market there is for corporate control. The market for corporate control allows ownership and managerial authority to change when investors believe that a company's resources could be managed more effectively. The possibility of a takeover can encourage accountability by discouraging persistent underperformance, wasteful spending, excessive executive benefits, poor capital allocation, or management entrenchment. However, takeover pressure can also encourage managers to focus excessively on short-term stock prices, or reduce research and development, or avoid long-term investments, or cut employee development, or increase debt defensively, or finally sell valuable assets to discourage bidders. Takeover measures can improve organizational discipline, but it can also distort decision-making. Managers must distinguish between protecting long-term value and protecting ineffective leadership. Let's talk about preventative and active defenses. Some preventative defenses are established before a specific hostile bid begins. Some examples could be the poison pill, staggered boards, supermajority voting requirements, fair price provisions, advance notice bylaws, dual class shares, restrictions on shareholder action, state anti-takeover statutes, or change in control agreements. These measures may increase negotiating leverage and reduce the likelihood of a surprise change in control. They may also weaken shareholder influence and managerial accountability. There are some active defenses that are often used after a hostile threat appears. Some examples are activating a poison pill, seeking a white knight, repurchasing shares, increasing debt, selling assets, filing litigation, appealing to regulators, launching a shareholder communications campaign, attempting to acquire the bidder. Active defenses can affect the company long after takeover contests end. A poorly designed response may leave the organization heavily indebted, strategically weakened, or unable to invest in future growth. I keep mentioning the poison pill, so let's talk about that. A poison pill is usually structured as a shareholder rights plan. When a bidder acquires more than a specified percentage of the company's shares, other shareholders may receive the right to purchase additional shares at a substantial discount. The bidder is excluded from this opportunity. The resulting dilution makes it much more expensive for the bidder to acquire control without negotiating with the board. Here's a simplified example. Assume that a company has 100 shares. A bidder acquires 15 million shares. The poison pill triggers at 15%. Other shareholders purchase millions of discounted shares. The bidder's ownership percentage becomes significantly smaller, and acquiring control becomes much more expensive. Here's why the poison pill matters. A poison pill may prevent rapid accumulation of control, give the board time to evaluate the offer, encourage the bidder to negotiate, help the board to see a higher offer or another buyer. However, it may also prevent shareholders from accepting a premium offer, strengthen an entrenched board, restrict legitimate activist or investor activity, and delay needed leadership change. The ownership threshold, expiration date, exemptions, and board redemption authority all affect whether the pill is proportionate. Okay, let's talk about the board's legal and managerial responsibility. Directors resisting a takeover face a potential conflict of interest. They may sincerely believe that the offer is harmful, but they may also fear losing their positions. Under the Delaware Unical framework, courts generally examine whether the board had reasonable grounds to identify a threat, whether the defense response was reasonable and proportionate. A board should be able to support its decision through a few things like financial analysis, independent advice, careful deliberation, evaluation of financing and regulatory risk, comparison and alternative transaction, documentation of a company's standalone value, periodic reconsideration of the defense. A board cannot justify a defense simply by stating that the offer is inadequate. Some possible threats may include an inadequate price, a coercive transaction structure, uncertain financing, serious regulatory barriers, exploiting of a temporarily depressed stock price, long-term strategic harm. The board must continually reassess whether the threat remains and whether the defense is still appropriate. All right, we talked about staggered boards and shareholder voting. A staggered board divides directors into classes. Normally, only one class is elected each year. With a three-class board, a bidder may need 2 election cycles to gain majority control. A staggered board becomes especially powerful when combined with a poison pill. The pill prevents the bidder from purchasing control. The staggered board delays the bidder's ability to replace directors and redeem the pill. Potential advantages include leadership continuity, preservation of institutional knowledge, and greater protection for long-term strategy. But there are some potential disadvantages, like reduced annual accountability, director entrenchment, delayed leadership change, prevention of value-enhanced acquisition. Let me give you an example from Airgas. Air Products attempted to acquire Airgas and repeatedly increase its offer. Airgas maintains its poison pill and a staggered board because its directors believed the offer undervalued the company. The courts allowed the pill to remain. Air Products eventually withdrew, and Airgas was later sold to another buyer at a substantially higher price. Supporters view the case as evidence that a board can protect shareholders from an inadequate offer. Critics argue that shareholders were prevented from deciding whether to accept the original premium. The lesson is not that every rejected bid produces a better outcome. The lesson is that the board must compare the offer with a realistic, evidence-based, standalone strategy. Okay, so let's talk about other preventative defenses. The first one is fair price provisions. Fair price provisions require comparable treatment for all shareholders. They're designed to prevent two-tier offers in which earlier sellers received a high price and remaining shareholders later received less. The defense addresses coercive pricing rather than attempting to prevent every acquisition. Supermajority voting. A supermajority provision may require 2/3, 75%, or 80% approval for a certain transaction. This can prevent a bidder with a narrow majority from quickly completing a merger. However, it also can allow a minority of shareholders to block transactions supported by most owners. Advance notice bylaws. These bylaws require shareholders to submit director nominations by a proposal by specific deadlines and provide required information. Reasonable requirements promote orderly elections. Excessively complicated rules may improperly prevent shareholders from nominating directors. And finally, dual-class shares. A dual-class structure gives different voting power to different share classes. Founders or insiders may retain control even while owning a minority of the company's economic interest. These structures can support long-term innovation and mission preservation. They can also separate voting control from financial risk and weaken outside shareholder influence. So let's talk about active financial and strategic defenses. For share repurchasing, the target may repurchase its own shares to reduce the number available to the bidder. A repurchase may signal that the management believes the company is undervalued. However, it may also consume cash, increase debt, and reduce future investment capacity. Leveraged recapitalization. The target may borrow substantial funds and distribute cash to shareholders through a special dividend or repurchase. This may make the company less attractive to the bidder and provide shareholders with immediate value. The debt remains even if the bidder leaves. Increased interest, expense, and reduced financial flexibility may weaken the company for years. And here's that crown jewel defense. That target may sell or transfer the asset that the bidder values most. This may defeat the acquisition, but it also can destroy the target company's competitive advantage. A defense that protects management while damaging the company is not a successful defense. And we talked about white knight. A white knight is a more acceptable acquirer supported by the target board. A white knight may offer a higher price, stronger financing, better strategic compatibility, greater regulatory certainty, better treatment of employees or operations. However, managers may prefer a white knight because it protects their positions. Independent directors must carefully manage this conflict. All right, greenmail. Greenmail occurs when the company repurchases a threatening investor's shares at a premium in exchange for ending the takeover effect. The primary ethical concern is that all shareholders fund the premium, but only the threatening investor receives it. And we've talked about this before, the Pac-Man defense. Under the Pac-Man defense, the target attempts to acquire the hostile bidder. This may create negotiating leverage, but it requires substantial financing and can expose the target to extreme financial and operational risk. So here's a little bit about litigation, regulation, and communication. A target may challenge a bid through litigation and regulatory review involving security disclosures, antitrust concerns, financing defects, contract violations, national security rules, and industry ownership restriction. Legal action may correct genuine problems and improve shareholder information. It should not be used merely to delay the bidder when the company lacks a credible strategy. A hostile takeover is also a contest over information and credibility. The bidder may argue that management has failed and that the offer provides immediate value. The target may argue that price is inadequate. The bid is opportunistically timed. Financing is uncertain. Regulatory risks are substantial. The standalone plan offers greater value. The target must provide a credible alternative, not simply criticize the bidder. A standalone plan may include operating improvement, cost reductions, new products, asset sales, leadership changes, capital returns, partnerships, revised financial targets. Managers must be prepared to deliver the results promised to the shareholder. Okay, now let's talk about anti-takeover defenses and shareholder wealth. The effect of anti-takeover defenses is controversial because the same defense can either increase or reduce shareholder value. Value protection perspective include defenses that may benefit shareholders by preventing coercive offers, creating time for careful evaluation, increasing bargaining power, producing a higher bid, encouraging competing offers, protecting credible long-term strategies. Okay, so from a management entrenchment perspective, these are defenses that may harm shareholders in a few ways, like blocking premium offers, insulating managers from accountability, weakening shareholder voting power, or allowing underperformance to continue, as well as preventing an efficient transfer of control. No defense is automatically beneficial or harmful. The appropriate question is whether the specific measure improves the expected outcome under the circumstances. A managerial framework for evaluating defenses. So, consider this. Managers can evaluate an anti-takeover response through 5 steps. Step 1, identifying the actual threat. You have to ask, is the price inadequate? Is the offer coercive? Is financing uncertain? Is the bidder obtaining control without paying an appropriate premium? Are regulatory risks significant? Step 2, evaluate the evidence. Examine financial forecasts, independent valuations, current market conditions, strategic alternatives, the bidder's financing, the company's competitive position, and the probability of achieving standalone projections. Step number 3, Select a proportionate response. Ask, does the defense directly address the threat? Is there a less restrictive alternative? Does it create decision-making time or eliminate shareholder choice? How long will the defense remain in place? Can it be reviewed, redeemed, or reversed? Step 4. Examine unintended consequences. Consider the effects on debt, cash, credit ratings, employees, customers, suppliers, strategic assets, capital investment, and reputation. And finally, step number 5, continually reassess. The board should consider its defense when the bidder increases prices, financing becomes more uncertain, another bidder appears, market conditions change, the standalone plan changes, or the original threat no longer exists. So let's sum some things up. Some key takeaways are a hostile takeover is opposed by the target board, but stakeholders may still support it. Preventative defenses are established before a specific threat. Active defenses are used after a threat emerges. A poison pill dilutes a bidder that crosses a specific ownership threshold and generally forces negotiation with the board. A staggered board can delay the bidder's ability to replace directors, especially when combined with a poison pill. White knights may improve the price transaction terms, but management conflicts must be carefully controlled. Crown jewel and scorched earth defenses may defeat a bidder while damaging the target company. Anti-takeover defenses may increase shareholder value by preventing coercion and improving bargaining leverage. They may reduce shareholder value by entrenching management and blocking attractive offers. The board should identify a genuine threat, select a proportionate, appropriate response, and document its reasoning and continually assess the defense. Rejecting a bid is an active decision to pursue the standalone strategy. Management must be prepared to deliver the promised results. And finally, the strongest long-term defense is often effective management, credible governance, responsible capital allocation, and consistent operating performance. That's the video number 3 on anti-takeover measures. I hope that you're taking something positive away from this, and I hope that you have a great day, because only you get to choose how you feel about it. I'm Dr. Paul Gerhardt.